Okay, great. So we're going to get started, everybody. I see that most of you are off screen, and that's perfectly fine because for the rest of the presentation, if you don't want to be on camera, that's fine. I always like to see your faces before we start, though. So if anybody wants to show their faces, it's always nice to see smiles and eyeballs and stuff like that. Hi, nice to see you. Thanks for coming. All right, I see we're going to have nice to see new face. Good to see you. Anyone else? Anyone else want to go on real quick before we start our presentation? Always good to see. Always good to see your faces. I'm going to share our screen now. As you guys all noticed, this is going to be recorded. Actually is in the process of being recorded. So thank you for sticking around for that. And that means that if you need to remind yourselves of the content, it will be recorded. And for anybody else who is not a participant who missed out on today's session will also be able to see it. So I'm going to share my screen. Remember to share sound, which is what I always forget to do. I'm going to take us into full screen. So colleagues, can you see my screen? Does it look right to you? Okay. Yes. Excellent. Awesome. So let's get started. So this is our admissions info session for international candidates. I'm really excited to have you all here. Welcome to you, friends near and far. This is our main gate at the City College of New York. It is a spectacular day here in New York City. I don't know where you all are calling from, but it's a spectacular day here. It's a little chilly. This is not a live shot because there's leaves on the trees. I am Nancy Tagg. I am the program director of BIC, and I am joined by my colleagues here from City College, as well as with an alumnus, but in particular by program manager Rebecca Rivera, who's going to be manning the chat. And I think we have one question for you if you're in to put into the chat. We're really curious to find out, how did you hear about this info session? We put it out there pretty late. And so we're fascinated to hear how you found out that we were holding this session. So if you could put that in the chat. Rebecca will also be monitoring the chat throughout our session today. And we ask that you hold off on any questions in terms of audio. If you want to say your questions out loud, if you could wait until the end of our session tonight, this afternoon rather. But if you have a burning question and you're afraid you're going to forget it, put it in the chat and we'll look at it after the session is in Q&A mode, and we'll bring it back up to the queue. So let's get started. Here's our agenda. I'm here to welcome you and to tell you all about the BIC program. I think that's one of the big things that you're here to listen to, and it also puts the context for being an international student into perspective. We'll just turn it over after that at about 12:40 to Pauline Pabon, who is the graduate admissions director here at City College. And she's going to tell you the more specific issues and challenges and opportunities that you have as an international student when you apply to the City College of New York for graduate school. And then I'm going to turn it over to Maribel Marua, who will talk about visa. She is our Director of International Student and Scholar Services here at City College. So she'll be joining us at around 12:50. And then we're going to wrap it up by introducing you to one of our amazing BIC alums, Andy Kwan, who graduated in 2016. He is part of our second cohort of graduates in the BIC program, and he's also currently a senior brand strategist at Future Brand. And so he's going to tell you a little bit about what life is like as an international student in terms of navigating the system, navigating your world, and even talking a little bit about building a career as an international student once you graduate. So with that, let's get started. Let me introduce you to the graduate program in branding and integrated communications here at City College. We call it BIC, B-I-C. We are supercharged by the diverse dynamic energy of being in the world's media communications capital, New York City. As I mentioned, being in New York City, we are actually in Manhattan more specifically, and even more specifically, we are in the Hamilton Heights section of Harlem. And so I love this photo because it dramatizes the fact that we are not only in the thick of it, but we also kind of overlook the media communications capital of the world. We're a little bit north, which gives us some distance from all of the dynamic action that's happening in Midtown, but also means that we're very close to it as well. So who are BICsters? Who are students who are applying? Who are the students that get in? What kind of students will you meet when you get here? To me, the students are almost most of the program. So we build out this program, we have amazing faculty, but really the program is all about you. So what is a BICster once you get in? I like to talk a little bit about the undergraduate paths that our students have taken before they come into the program, because they're so diverse and interesting. And I think that's something that we actually strive for. While we have a number of students who have already studied communications or advertising or public relations or something in the media related or marketing area, we have a number of students who have business degrees and things like that. What makes this a really interesting program is that our students come from all kinds of backgrounds in terms of what they study as undergraduates. So we've had students who are architecture students, electrical engineering, that's one of my favorites, finance, information systems, industrial design. Forensic geology was also a big highlight, I thought. Just students who want to change it up, kind of not sure what they wanted to do when they did a deep dive as an undergraduate. And now, as they're thinking about graduate school, they want to do maybe a lateral move or a completely different move, but they realize that in the communications world, we make things exist. And so having almost any kind of background and then layering on a communications degree makes you really an effective person, both as an individual and also as you go through in a career path. Our students have come from all sorts of colleges here in the United States, Dartmouth, RISD, Cornell, Yale, Pratt, University of Rochester, Sarah Lawrence. And of course, they come from around New York City, from the CUNY system, as well as New York State in the SUNY system. That is not to say that most of our students have done their undergraduate degrees here in the United States, because we have a number of students who are international. And in that regard, I wanted to show you some of the places that our students have come from. And you'll see that it's incredibly diverse. It's just the entire globe. We do not have a feeder country. So it is not like going to some schools where you'll see a majority of a certain country sitting next to you. Instead, the interesting thing, and one of the things that makes us so dynamic, is that students come from all over. And so you have that wonderful mix of sitting next to somebody that could be living down the street from City College or from the other side of the planet. So Armenia, Fiji, Egypt, Sri Lanka, Norway, Bangladesh. So just absolutely everywhere. Our students, I'm not sure how many of you are international. I'm assuming most of you, but we also put this invitation out to students who are out of state, because a lot of the same issues or distinctions of applying can also relate to you too. And so we've had students that come from all over the country as well, Florida, Texas, Minnesota, and Virginia. But of course, if we were to say where do like at least 40% of our students come from in any given class, that would be New York City. And New York probably more broadly in the tri-state area, so Brooklyn, Manhattan, Bronx, and Queens. The interesting thing, though, is that, as you know, New York is an international city. So even if students were born in New York City, they often have an international background, and a number of our students have lived in New York City for quite some time and are now considered citizens, but in some cases are immigrants themselves or first generation. So it's a very, very interesting dynamic mix of students. So because it's so varied, what we like to say as a common denominator, what do we want all of our students to do? We want them to be curious. So we say enter curious and leave curious, but with credentials. The communications industry is a very fast-paced one. And if you're not a curious person who's always interested in what's looking around the corner, this is not for you. So the other thing about curiosity is that it feeds you and you never get full. So we say you're going to enter curious, but you're going to leave curious. You're not going to get full. You're just going to continue that curiosity. But BIC will give you the credentials that will allow you to succeed in the communications field. So in the BIC program, we have 4 discrete tracks: management and brand strategy. We have public relations. We have creative or creative content producers, and marketing media. So that is part of the tech space and programmatic and planning and that sort of thing. So although we have students entering in 4 discrete tracks, we, all of our students learn in a discipline agnostic way, as well as doing a deep dive in their discipline. And in that way, we like to say we graduate T-shaped students. In other words, you will come into the program selecting a track, but you will learn in a discipline agnostic way, as well as through discipline depth. And that is the stem of the T. You will have discipline depth when you leave, but you will also know broadly what it takes to make any type of communications work. And so you'll have a very broad understanding of the communications industry as well. And so that's what we mean by T-shaped. And we do that by teaching in an integrated way. So BIC is the only graduate program to teach branding and integrated communications in an integrated way. That means that we don't just tell you about integration. Our courses are actually very integrated. Our students are integrated. They're cross-disciplinary and they collaborate with great frequency. Let me tell you a couple of other things that make our program distinctive. We have, as I just mentioned, an interdisciplinary focus. We believe, and I think that it is accurate, that the industry is merging, and therefore we want everyone at the table. Our big toolbox approach creates better discipline agnostic solutions. The consumer doesn't really understand the things that we do behind the scenes. They just understand the experience. And if you don't understand it in an integrated way as well, then you're not going to be serving the people that your messaging is ultimately going out and trying to reach. Our professors are all professionals. I am actually the only professor in the program who does not also have a full-time job in the industry. And what that means is that you have up-to-date experience, high-level expertise, real-world knowledge, and an active network. I had one student that said, it's like going to through a semester at BIC is like a semester-long interview because you meet so many people in the industry. So our professors have an amazingly active and high-level network, and they share that with you. And that's really very impressive. And as I said, the industry is moving so quickly, so we don't generally use textbooks even, because we feel that our faculty are our resources because they have the most up-to-date knowledge. We are a portfolio-driven program. That means that all of our students, regardless of track, need to produce a portfolio in order to graduate. And so we believe that portfolio is, one, it's evidence that you've learned what you say that you've learned, or what your degree or that piece of paper says that you've learned. Instead, we give you that, but we also ask that you do a portfolio and defend it to professionals to prove that you really understand the industry. And that proof is very, very evident by the judges, and then in the world at large once you go out there. So it is a really key BIC differentiator. It is a great recruitment and engagement tool. But the other reason why we do the portfolio is that it is part of a process. It is reiterative learning, it's deeper self-reflection, and it is a reapplication of the skills through an individual lens. And so what you'll find in the program is that you're constantly working on your portfolio even after your courses are done. So as you're looking at your coursework, you're rethinking it because you want it through that individual lens. And in that way, we feel that our students really understand the material that they're learning in the program. BIC is very project-based. We believe in project-based learning because it contextualizes material, it allows skills to be developed through action, and there's a lot of in-process critique. In other words, everybody in your cohort is part of your challenge network. They are pushing you to make sure that you are not the same person when you leave as when you enter, that you have grown and you've turned into somebody that is much more substantive, beyond curiosity, and much more filled with expertise. New York City is our playground. It is not, I think it's not an accident that our program is so dynamic and is so substantive. It is because we are here in the media communication capital of the world, and it gives us that access to faculty, but also to mentoring. It helps with recruiting. We require that students attend at least 2 conferences during their time here in the program. And that is not hard when you're in New York City, because there's dozens of conferences happening every single semester. So we do require that, but it also keeps you nimble and flexible, which is what you need to be throughout your career. It also allows for great site visits as well. So our students travel around the city all the time. Sometimes they meet in classes at agencies as well as on campus. So New York City truly is our playground and our laboratory. We have an amazing, diverse cohort in every single class that we have. In fact, I've often been asked to show it on a pie chart, and I tell people it's way too dynamic to even put it on a pie chart. That's just too static for me. BIC lives it, breathes it, and embraces it in ways that the industry could only dream of. This is an actual photo of a bunch of people, a bunch of BIC students or alums, actually students, who crammed into an elevator after one of our Mix and Mentor events. And fortunately, the person taking the selfie, Castro, who's in the foreground, was about 6'7". So he was able to capture this amazingly tight, condensed photo of us in an elevator. And Andy's in there. So you'll see Andy a little bit later. He was a part of that Mix and Mentor that afternoon. Legacy. We are also part of City College, which has just celebrating our 170 years of academic excellence. So there's something about being tethered to an academic institution where you can walk across the quad and talk to somebody in psychology or computer science in ways that maybe integrate with what it is that you're doing, but also the structure and the legacy and the ability to have a diploma from this magnificent institution, I think gives you great value as well. BIC was co-developed by the industry. This is not a program that is strictly academic or theoretical. It is something that the industry helped me build as the person who was the main architect of the program and continues to help me build. I talk to the industry on a weekly, sometimes daily basis to make sure that our courses make sense. So these professionals make us relevant so that we're relevant to the industry. I think that is another one of the values of this program. And then finally, our students graduate with a bucket of skills and expertise rather than into a specific position. So a lot of our students enter thinking, oh, I want to be a strategist. But instead of just saying, I want to be a strategist, we say, what are all the skills that you need? The world these days, especially in terms of careers, require you to be extremely nimble. And so if you have your heart set on a particular position, that's great, go for it. But our belief is that a lot of those positions shift and change and expand and do all kinds of things. So you'll be a much more prepared professional if you think of yourself as a bundle of skills rather than a particular profession that you're going to get into. At the end of it, you will graduate with an MPS degree. That is a Master of Professional Studies. It is a terminal degree, quite like an MBA or an MFA, means that it leads to professional work at the end of it. It is distinctive. BIC teaches students how to think, students apply what they learn, and then they reflect on why it matters. I think that reflect on why it matters is why the master's aspect of this is so critically important. As a graduate student, you have so many choices, or as a professional. And one of them is to not go to graduate school at all and just kind of shore up your professional skills by taking certificate programs or just going to conferences and things like that. I believe that if you go into a master's program, it shows a distinctive type of commitment to learning, and it kind of shores you off and does that reflection on why it matters. And that is something that as professionals in a world that moves so quickly, we often don't get time to do. And that's why I think getting a master's is so critically important these days, especially in a discipline like communications, which is changing so rapidly and much more complicated than it's ever been before. And you get an MPS degree here at City College, all for a tremendous value. It is less than $40,000 for international students and for out-of-state students. That is the full price of our degree. And I know that that's actually a lot of zeros, so that is a lot of money on the one hand, but on the other hand, an MPS, again, a terminal degree like an MBA, if you were to get an MBA down the street at Columbia University, for example, you would probably pay almost around $150,000 for that. That is a huge difference than $40,000. Columbia University also has a strategic communications degree, a master's degree, that is about $80,000. I mentioned Columbia because it is a few blocks away from us, and it makes the most dramatic comparison between those two tuition numbers. I'm going to take you through some of the proof that our students do well in our program and that they learn in a dynamic environment. And that is the awards that they win. That's another reason why getting into a master's program is really a great value to you, because these are awards that our students enter that they're not eligible to apply into or submit to if they're just kind of, going through their day. You have to be part of a graduate program in order to do that. And our students enter and they win. We've had a number of pencils from the One Club. The One Club is the Organization for Creative Excellence. It is kind of like our Academy Awards. So that is a measurement of success. I'm not going to go through the awards as much as I'm going to go through the pictures of students winning awards, because that's that moment when you realize I worked like crazy and I got this amazing reward at the end of it. The other thing I just wanted to point out, because I'm talking to an international audience here, is that these are award shows that it doesn't matter where you come from. As long as you're in the BIC program, you can apply. And our students apply as interdisciplinary students. So even though a lot of the students who will win these awards might be in another school creatives, here they're strategists, they're PR people, they're media planners, as well as creatives, and they end up winning awards. Liana is from Greece. She's the second one to the left. And Katina is from Spain. So we have two international students in this group. This is an entirely international group of students: Russia, India, Taiwan, and the Dominican Republic. In this one, we have almost an entire international group. We have Italy, China, and Mexico represented in this award-winning group. I can't even get into this one. I know we have a few international students as well winning. And here we have some gold winning when we were in quarantine. So even our students were even winning when they were in quarantine. So awards, happy students, excitement. We have many students have MAPE, which is a multicultural advertising internship program that is for many communications, not just advertising. And it is generally not for international students, and yet a number of our international students have gotten their internships in the summer through this program. So I point out that we have a number of students doing that. We have the PR Council Student Innovation Award. I only throw this in because I love Casey's dress. And we've had more than 29 the LeGrant Foundation Scholars, which is significantly more than any other school in the country. And the schools that usually win this are students from Harvard, Yale, and University of Chicago. So it's a really stiff competition, and yet the BIC program has more scholars by far than any other individual program in their history. We also partner with industry organizations. We'll do not-for-profit. This is for Sandy Hook Promise. We've done Memorial Sloan Kettering. So in your time in the program, you get to interact with professionals and with professional projects. In the case of our corporate clients, they actually pay us $15,000 for your expertise. So they are real paying clients who have high-level marketing people, and they come back and ask to participate again and again and again. I've got somebody who needs to go on mute. Thank you. We have partnerships by doing events in Midtown, which not only allow us to schmooze with the industry, but allow the students to pick up some alcohol, which is always a great lubricant. We have a media impact compact with the launch of our new media track that is benefiting the class of 2024 by supporting their tuitions 100%. That's a one-time deal, but the support that they're giving us through all kinds of academic and professional resources is unimaginable. And so you see the agencies that are involved in this. It's absolutely outstanding. One more proof is jobs. Our students get amazing jobs. And we do that by actually giving you professional coaching. We have a professional coach who comes in and does 4 lunchtime sessions with you to talk about that. We do a portfolio in progress, a recruiting event in the final semester that you're in the program. So you get to interact with recruiters. You get to have that kind of dynamic experience, almost like speed dating. So we prepare you for that. And in the end, here are some of the places that our students have ended up. And in some cases, they zig and zag. They may start at an agency, for example, and then shift over to the brand side, and then they might shift back into the agency or start at the agency. They might go to a not-for-profit. They might start at the NAACP, or they might then go into academia. So our students, again, graduating with that bucket of skills, are incredibly nimble. And that's what I think is another asset of the program. This is a career journey of from our very first class, Amber Jackson. She entered as an IPG fellow. She immediately got a job as an account executive at Gray. She went through the program, did absolutely amazingly. She was our first LeGrant Foundation scholar. When she graduated, she got a job. She was instantly promoted. She had a very supportive team. And then she took a job that summer as an account manager at 360i, which is a digital agency. And then a year later, she got recruited by Apple and is now on the West Coast as a brand manager at Apple. So she's a great demonstration of how students will work while they're here, but also accelerate while they're here and then get opportunities when they leave in that kind of zigzagging fashion that I mentioned. I'm looking at my time, and I think I have enough time to share with you our sizzle reel. So I'm hoping that the sound is on. If not, it's okay. It's just music, but it helps your toes to tap. So let me play this for you. So that's our sizzle reel for, I think we did that 2 years ago. So there's a lot of stuff we can add on, or maybe a year ago. But I do want to note that it says at the very end how creativity works, and would give you the impression that this is only the work of our alums who are in the creative end of the industry. But the reality is that was submitted by our students in all kinds of disciplines. So it represents the work of our brand strategists, our account managers, our public relations practitioners, as well as our creative students. So that's one of the things that's really exciting about that sizzle reel, because it is so representative of the type of work that you could be doing once you graduate from the program. And of course, it's very visual, so it only represents the little sliver of the work that our students are doing. So a couple of some BIC basics. We are a full-time program. It takes 2 years to complete it. It is portfolio driven. We have, it is 36 credits, and most of our students take 9 credits per semester, and they space that out over the course of 2 years. So fall, spring. They don't take classes in the summer, and then fall, spring again. The reason why we spread out those 36 credits over the course of 2 years, even though we could do them in 3 consecutive semesters, is because of that portfolio development aspect of the BIC program. And so the students are working on their portfolio independently as they're moving through the program and taking their BIC courses. All of our classes are held at night from 6:30 to 9 p.m. That allows our students to work during the day, which most of them do. Not all of them do, but most of them do work during the day and come in the evening. Again, there are 4 tracks: creative, art direction and copywriting, creative content people, management and brand strategy, media, and public relations. And generally, we accept around 10 students per track, and we try to cap out about 35 students in each cohort. So at any given time, because we are a 2-year program, we'll have about 65 to 70 students in the program. Our next entry point is fall 2023. Unlike any of the other programs, the graduate programs here at City College, we have 4 different deadlines that you can shoot for. Our first one has passed. That was December 1st. Our next one is coming up on February 1st. There's an asterisk by the one on April 3rd, because we do encourage international students to meet that in order to do a lot of the extra paperwork that is required of you if you get accepted. And if you do need to have an earlier acceptance than that, please notify us and we'll try to accept you by May 1st. Maribel will talk a little bit more about the visa process and why it's good to get that your application in as early as possible. I know that February 1st is coming up, so if any of you here are interested as an international student and want to get in before April 3rd, just send us a note and we will review your application even before that April 3rd deadline if you're not ready to meet the February 1st deadline. For BIC, admissions made easy is you have to select a track. Some students will change once they get into the program, but most don't. So you do have to select a track in order to get into the program. You need a resume, a personal statement, 2 case studies, or writing samples, and a passion project, 2 recommendations. Creative track candidates must also submit a spec portfolio. So if you're curious to know what that entails, let me know. College level statistics is a prereq for the other tracks. I'm going to let Pauline talk a little bit about the TOEFL and other test requirements for international students. Our undergraduate GPA minimum is a 3.0. We will look at transcripts that are under that. We do look at the application in a holistic way, so don't let that deter you. But we do generally say that the minimum is 3.0. Pauline will tell you that admissions won't move the file through to the BIC admissions committee, which is an evaluative process, until it meets the standard of City College. And that is where Pauline Pavone comes in, who can help get us into the more particulars of the admissions process from an international candidate's perspective. So Pauline, are you there?
I am, yes.
I am going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are in for an information treat.
Absolutely. I tell you, every time I hear about the BIC program, I'm ready to apply myself. There's so much going on. It just excites me of all the skill set that students gain from this program. Welcome everybody from all over the globe. How exciting. Again, I manage the admissions process here at City College. As Nancy mentioned, we don't make any decisions on this end. We just make sure that the applicants have met all of the requirements, and then it's passed over to the faculty and their review committees to enter decisions. So I'm just going to give a very quick overview of the application process. And shortly in the chat, I'll add some other dates. We do offer full information sessions on the giving tips throughout the whole application process. So I'll provide that information for you shortly. As Nancy mentioned, the components of an application would be your transcripts. And this is always a tricky area, certainly for our international students, it can be. For the application process, we ask that you upload any copies of your transcripts to the application. Only after you've been accepted into the program do we require you to submit official transcripts, meaning that they're issued directly from your university in sealed envelopes or sent through an official document transfer system. And so I say this could be a challenge because certainly international students, depending on the country that you're applying from, it can take some time to get these documents. And so a good tip is to, we know that you're here, so you're interested in this graduate program and maybe some others, you should begin to request official transcripts to keep sealed on hand for the event you're prepared to turn those in. A transcript should be in their standard format. For international students, if the college does not issue the transcripts in English, then you will certainly have to have those documents translated by an official translation agency. Evaluations of your transcript are not required, although you certainly can submit evaluations as well. And so, and on the next slide, when we get to that, there'll be a piece, not yet, there'll be a piece and a link that I can provide for you in terms of the evaluation agencies that the college accepts. Just a quick overview. Again, I want to focus on the items that are specific to international populations. So the transcripts, right, getting the official and having them translated or evaluated. As Nancy mentioned, letters of recommendation for this program you're required to submit to. There's the personal statement and additional supplemental material that Nancy mentioned. And then there are the test scores. For international students, you would be required to submit English language scores. And it can be any one of the agencies, TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, or Pearson's. Yeah, I sort of skipped ahead. I forgot to go back to the transcript here. You can, yeah. And so we talked about your transcripts, submitting unofficial with your application versus official after you've been accepted. They should be in traditional format, meaning that it should be in chronological order. Sometimes we get screenshots of unofficial systems that just show a list of courses that you took, but faculty want to see the patterns in your transcript as well. And so they want to look at them as they are in chronological order. So definitely traditional format. I mentioned the method of delivery. It's either going to come to us by mail. We still accept by mail. It should be in its sealed envelope from the university. If you are already in the country and you're bringing your official documents with you, that's fine. Just make sure you do not open them. You can walk them onto campus, or if your school uses the official electronic transfer system. So it will come through a national clearinghouse or Parchment or something along those lines. The other thing that we look for on the transcript is to make sure that you've received your degree or you are in your last semester of graduating. And so we want to see that you've either received your degree in the date that you received it, or see that you are again en route to receive it. You wouldn't be able to register for classes until you can provide proof that you actually received your undergraduate degree. We talked about translated transcripts. There's the link in this document. You all are going to receive this after today's event, so you'll have that. This takes you to a page on our website that lists other information that's specific to our international population. So things like test scores, translation of documents, things of that nature. Let's see. So one thing to note, and again, for international students, we understand the difficulty in receiving documents from your university, certainly depending on the country you're coming from. But note that once you've been accepted and you've submitted official documents to the college, we can no longer return those documents to you. And so that's why I mentioned earlier, it's a good idea if you can get 2 or 3 copies on hand, official documents on hand, certainly if you're applying other places, because the documents will stay at the college. Certainly we can forward documents to our sister schools, but we wouldn't be able to release those documents to schools outside of the university. And so if you have taken graduate study at your university or anywhere else, and are interested in considering some of those credits to be transferred, you would meet with your advisor first to determine whether or not those courses can be transferred and applied to the program. That's the advanced standing process. And so that happens after you've already been admitted. You want to see if you can transfer some coursework in. You would talk with your advisor about that. And so again, we come back to test scores. If you are familiar with the GRE, that is no longer required. It was never a requirement for the BIC program, however, but for some of our programs, it was. However, since the pandemic, that has been relaxed, and so we're not asking for it just generally. However, we do ask that you submit the English language test. Again, it could be the TOEFL, the IELTS, the Peterson's, or the Duolingo. The test scores vary by program. And so in the chat, I'm going to put what those score requirements are for the BIC program so that you have it specifically. And those test scores, you could either upload it to the application as well, just to help speed in the review process. But certainly we would log into the systems to make sure we have those official scores on file as well. Okay. Let's see. So certainly we get questions about exemptions, and there is a list of countries that are exempt from submitting the TOEFL scores, and the link is here as well, so you can see if the country you're coming from is exempt. Oftentimes we get a statement saying, well, no, we were taught all in English, we only speak English, and I understand, but if the country is not on the list, then we wouldn't be able to provide the exemption. And so just be mindful of that. And so again, the 2 things that I wanted to talk specifically about for international students, particularly the transcripts, because they're coming from an international school, and then the test scores that are specific. But again, I'm going to also put in the chat a link to our homepage where, I know not Nancy's favorite these days, but a link to our homepage which lists the other dates that we have full information sessions where we go into more detail about each of the components of the application process. So thanks for coming, and hopefully we'll see you on campus someday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Pauline. That was awesome. Pauline is going to stick around for questions because I'm sure a few of you might have some questions about some of that information because it was a lot of good stuff. But right now we're going to move forward and hear from Maribel, the Director of International Student and Scholar Services. Maribel, are you there? I'm not hearing you.
Maribel, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Sorry, I was saying that I was blown away by the video. It was beautiful. It was just great.
You're still tapping your toes.
Yeah, I'm still tapping my toes. Thank you so much for having me here, and welcome to everyone in this group here. Basically, the International Student Office is here to support you. Once you're admitted into the college, we're your next stop. We will work with you to give you the documents that you need in order to apply for the student visa. The first thing that you'll need after you're admitted is an I-20 form. And the I-20 form, not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's a government form. It's used to apply for the visa, and basically it tells the officer when you apply for the visa that you've been admitted into an institution that's approved by Homeland Security to host international students. To get this I-20, there are 2 things that you need: the acceptance into the program. The acceptance cannot be conditional. You must meet all of the requirements. You can't have a letter that says that you need prerequisites, because then we're not able to issue that I-20. And submission of the I-20 application, which we will share with you after you're admitted into the college, and your supporting financial documents. So the financial documents, we have, like I said, a form. It's the affidavit or an application for the I-20. You'll see on the side, the document is really detailed. So it gives you all of the information of how much you need to present, what we need to see in order to issue that I-20. So for the big program, you need to show at least $19,663, which covers tuition and fees. And this is always subject to change. That's for 1 year. And the cost of living expenses, which is $30,663, usually also subject to change. So that's a total of $50,236 US that we need to see in order to issue that I-20 form. You can have a sponsor. You can sponsor yourself. You can have a family member sponsor you, friends, multiple sponsors. What you need to do when you submit the documents to us, you have to have supporting documents. So bank letter, a bank statement. We usually take bank letters or statements with foreign currency, but if you can get it with the US dollar, the conversion, it would be great. Preferably in English. We also sometimes get letters or bank statements that we can't read. So we ask if it's possible, if you can submit those in English. We have also students who come to the US and they have family members or friends who are willing to host them. They can live with them and they'll provide room and board. So on the side, there's a little box and it shows you the value of room and board. So you can always deduct that amount from the total cost of living expense of $30,000. Once you're accepted, we'll provide you with this. So the lease, the documents, the bank statements, and the bank letter cannot be older than 3 months. Once you receive your I-20, the next step is to apply for the F1 visa. And this is why we encourage you to apply as early as possible, because after the pandemic, there's been so many delays with students trying to get a visa appointment. So the earlier you're admitted, the earlier you can begin this process. So the I-20 form in the past, we would send it by mail. Now we can send it by email. So that cuts time. Once you receive it, you sign it, you print it, you pay a $350 CVIS fee. That's the link where you would go to make that payment. You print your receipt because you will need it when you go to apply for the visa. Then you complete the visa application, which is the DS-160. There's an additional $160 application fee. That's the link where you would apply. And even you can go now to take a look and see some of the requirements and if there are appointments available for your home country and how long, of a wait there is. And then you schedule that appointment for the visa interview. When you go to the visa interview, you will need to take your I-20 and your financial documents, everything that you submitted to us, and the letter of acceptance, just to show them. After the visa is approved, you're able to arrive as early as 30 days prior to the program start date. This allows you time to settle in, attend registration, orientation, find an apartment. If you are receiving a scholarship and you're going to require a social security number, this gives you time to apply for that because the Social Security office does take a bit of time to provide the number. But within all of that, you should work with us. We'll help you, we'll guide you because you'll need documentation from us to apply for the Social Security number if you need to. Once you arrive, you have 10 days to report your arrival to us because we then need to take further steps. We need to let the government know you've arrived, you've told us you're here, you submitted to us copies of your passport, your visa, your signed I-20, your record of entry, and then we activate your CVIS record, letting them know you're here and you're legal and you're good to go. So that's part of the reporting requirements. We'll send you a contact sheet. You'll complete that. You'll give us your US address, and we'll enter that in the Student Exchange Visitor Information System, CVIS, which is basically the hub where all of the information for international students is held. That's where the government checks to see if you're in status, if you're attending. That's where we report everything. Change in major, change in address, anything, change in phone, email, everything goes in there. And one of the most important things as an international student for you to maintain your F1 status is to register full-time every single semester. For graduate students, that requirement is 9 credits, which is great because Nancy mentioned that's what you register for. So 9 credits will have you as a full-time student. If for any reason you're not able to, there's an academic reason, you just entered the US, you're not familiar with the teaching, the methods, or the course may be a little bit too advanced, then you can use an academic reason that first semester for a reduced course load. It can't be less than 6 credits though. And it would require a form that we have and signature from your academic department. Also, there's a medical reason. You're not, you start the semester full time, in the middle of the term, you get sick. Please let us know. You can take as little as no credits. You can take the whole semester off if you're ill, as long as we have documentation, a medical doctor license telling us that, they're recommending that you take the semester off. For this, the government allows a total of 12 months. It could be done, like, let's say 3 months now, you're fine, and then you need another month or so, but 12 months in total. And then a final semester reduced course load, which is used one time. So if for your final semester, you only need 1 class, then that's all you can take or need to take. That's fine. Just let us know and we'll approve that. Always contact our office before you drop, before you withdraw, because failure to do so could result in the termination of your CVIS record, and you don't want that. You always want to maintain your status. You always want to be legal. After you graduate, you're able to apply for the optional practical training. While you're here, you can apply for on-campus jobs. You can do curricular practical training. And for all those things, you have to have a valid status. It's my contact information, Maribel Marua, here in the Department of International Students. We're happy to answer any questions at the end. I'm happy. And if you have anything that pops up after this, that's my email. Feel free to send me any emails that you want. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maribel. That was great.
Thank you.
Like Pauline, Maribel's going to stick around for just a bit for the Q&A. But before that happens, I want to introduce you to one of our alums who was here as an international student. He graduated in the class of 2016, and he is now the senior brand strategist at Future Brand. Andy Kwan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
He sure is. He's also one of my favorite students of all. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Andy. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, of course. I'm going to take the time to share some of the tips and hacks that I've been learning through the years in the States, and also something that I learned from the program. And I think just to kickstart, I'm going to say you're going to have a great time here. And there's so many things that you can do. And the 10 minutes-ish sharing that I'm going to do, it's just a glimpse into the things that you can actually do here. And I think the first very thing is like living, as we talked about, like finding a place to live in New York City is hard, especially for international students. We have like extra requirements and stuff. It's a little bit challenging. But the tips that I have is our college actually offer on-campus housing. So plan ahead of time, explore your options, and see if that is something that is able to meet your need. And the picture on the very top left corner is the pictures that I took in the dorm when I was living there. So that is living. And when I was living there, I also met other international students from everywhere. And the picture in the first row in the middle, that was us getting together and have a potluck. So you have like people bring their own food from their home country, and then you can share different cultures and stuff. So it was a great time. And speaking of eating, there are so many things New York City can offer that it's just unlimited that you can explore. And the tips I will offer is there is a NYC restaurant week, and it happened 2 times a week. Actually, it's experiencing right now. I would encourage you guys to pay attention to it and look for the restaurant there, because you can get to a lot of restaurants, try different cuisines with a fairly low price. And sometimes you're able to get into like Michelin level restaurants. So that is something in terms of like eating, I recommend you guys to do. And just to make sure that I am on track of what I'm supposed to share with you, which is studying. Here are a couple of things I want to share with you regarding study here. People usually go to a library for study. That's a no-brainer. And most of people go to the main library. City College actually have 8 libraries. Besides the main libraries, we have 8 libraries. The pictures that I'm sharing on the top right corner there, it's quote unquote a hidden library that I found. I'm not going to share more where it is, but I do encourage you, where you are with us, let me know if you found my secret spot for studying over there. And in terms of like the other things that we can do, another hidden gem is the lectures the City College offer. And if you look at the purple image that I have on the second row, we actually have like lots of people coming into the college and offer different lectures to us. When I was studying back in 2014, we actually have a Nobel Prize author come in to give a lecture to us. So do remember to sign up for the newsletter there and then take advantage of it. And as professors had mentioned, we're so close to Columbia University. Chances are you can also go to their public events. You can go to their lectures and take advantage of those things. And we do have like professors actually coming from Columbia University, and they will share their info with us as well. They will share the insights, like there is a event, there is lectures over there. You guys should check it out. So those are some of the things that you can take advantage of. And on top of that, as Professor Tech mentions, we are at the capital of communication. Take advantage of what the city offers you. There are so many industrial events happening there. Our program actually requires you guys to attend those events. One of the ways that you can get in for free is by volunteering. I think like in the middle one, the pictures that I have there with like the purple graphic there, it's me volunteering for the NYC Media Lab Summit in 2014. And in exchange, they give me the patch, and then I was able to get in for the event. And sometimes they will give you like memberships and other goodies. Obviously, this is not a promise, but those are some of the things as international students. And let's say you don't have a tons of like spare money that you can use, ways that you can get in to those industrial events. Another things that I think Professor Tan mentioned is like the competitions that international students can actually participate. Other than, the one show and other like great events out there, our college also hosts our own events as well. And the pictures on the second row on the right, that was me participating in the Graduate Research Symposium back in 2015 before I graduate. And that is where we are like showing our work and then listening the announcement of the award. So there are so many different levels and so many different competitions that I really encourage international students to gear yourself up, participate, try things out, and apply the things you learn in school and see how that works. The other thing, the elephant in the room is, you do need to go to class. And when you go to class, it can be fun. And then the pictures that I have on the third row, the left corner at the bottom, it's a professor actually dress up for Halloween. So like it is academic, but at the same time, we do enjoy our time and have fun there. And the professor actually take to a completely different levels as well. The other things that I would say, like during the classes you have, is take note, use like OneNote or Notions, and make sure you capture all those informations and have quote unquote a second brain. That is, you capture digitally, paper-wise, so that later on when you review the knowledge that you learn, there is one place for everything's there. Besides study, obviously the city have so many museums that you can just take some time to relax and enjoy it. The pictures that I have is the Guggenheim. The architecture of the building is amazing. One little hacks I will offer you guys is once you're in the NYC, I would encourage you guys to apply for ID NYC, which is ID that you can use when you're in NYC. And with the ID, not only that you don't need to bring your passport with you everywhere, because when I was a student, I was so afraid, even now, I'm so afraid to bring my passport everywhere with me because I'm going to lose it. So I bring the ID card with me. So it's way more easier for me to go around in the city, and it provides me with my identity proof if ever necessary need to be checked. And also it comes with a lot of benefits when you apply for that ID card. Going to the museums for free is one of the benefits you will get from the NYC ID. So that is some things that I will encourage guys to explore. And the last one, arguably the most important thing for grad school, is party with your classmates. This is a pictures of the class that I was in. So I do encourage you guys to find times and find the moments to celebrate and have fun with your classmate. It's a good way to bond with your friends, because you do need to have like homeworks and then teamworks together. So finding some extra time to take and make that bond is crucial to your success of the projects. A hacks I will offer is if you are very new to the city and you're not sure what you can do, check out the Time Out New York. There's so many options on there to show you, and then you and your friends can celebrate and explore the city based on what they offer. And that was just me very quickly trying to go through some of the highlights that I have, and just a peek into the things that you can do and the life you will have here when you're with us. And I will turn it back to Professor Chak and see if you guys have any questions as well.
Thanks, Andy. That was great. And just, I mean, I find it so funny that you picked that picture of you and your class partying at Covo, because your group, after we had that event, I said, where are you guys going? And you all said to the library.
Yeah.
And we had this mixer with the class that was in ahead of you, and they stayed for karaoke. So two completely different types of classes and the way that they went about it, right? And so you really get to know your cohort. It's a really interesting personality. A cohort has its own personality, and that's what you guys did after this really fun party shot. You actually went to the library to study. So that's that. So I'm gonna move this forward and just essentially ask you guys if you have any questions. Rebecca has come back in. I know that there's been a lot of activity in the chat, but it would be great if you could go on audio to ask your question, pretty free flowing, whatever it is that you're interested in asking. I'm gonna just put this last slide up right here if you want to do a screenshot out of it, because then I'm going to stop the share so you can see us in a grid when you ask your questions. But if you want to take a screenshot of this, we are doing Zooms. Rebecca does a weekly Zoom. I do a weekly Zoom. If you have any kind of questions, so make sure to get this information. Both Rebecca and I can be reached at that BIC at ccuny.edu email address. So if you have any questions about this, you want to have access to the recording afterwards, or anything else that we didn't respond to you with during this particular session, please just reach out and let us know. And so with that, I am going to stop the share so that we are all back together again in the grid. Feel free to go back on camera when you ask your questions or even not. And I'm going to open the floor because I'm sure you all have questions to ask of Maribel, Pauline, and Andy in particular, but happy to field anything that you've got.
I
So,
have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Tony.
I have a question for both Pauline and Maribel. First and foremost, thank you so much for all the information that you shared. It's very insightful. So for Pauline, I graduated 2 years ago, 2020, actually 3 years ago now. Oh my gosh, I can't believe 2020 was 3 years ago. I graduated in 2020 from the new school. So I did study in the States. So I do know I do have the exemptions for the English test and so on. So my question is, I did transfer some credits to the new school and they are on my transcript. Is that sufficient for you, or do I also need the grades from the school that I transferred to?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We get it quite often. And so we certainly ask that you list all of the schools that you took coursework at, all of the universities you took coursework at, and that you upload at least the unofficial version of those transcripts. When it comes to the transcripts, we're really sort of focused in on the official transcript from the school that you actually received your degree from. However, if you took graduate courses that you're looking to transfer in, then certainly we will also want the official transcripts for those schools as well.
Okay, got it. I think that's sufficient. And then for Maribel, just as an international student, I'm very familiar with that process, and I'm already, in the States. I live in Brooklyn, New York, so it's more like a school transfer, and I've already looked at the process with the new school, how to transfer it. What has your experience been like when it comes to inter-school transfers?
Okay, it's very easy, extremely easy. Basically, once you get admitted, you speak with your international student advisor, you let them know that you're planning to transfer out. You give them a copy of the acceptance letter. There's a CVIS transfer form that we will give you, transfer in, for the new school to complete. And once they release your CVIS record to us and you give us all of your documents, we'll be able to issue an I-20. So it's really, really simple.
Okay, got it. I am currently on OPT, so I'd want to extend it as much as possible, but my STEM OPT ends on later on in this year, so I want to maybe hold on to it for a few more months, but then do the transfer. And I did check with my embassy that they no longer require an in-person interview, so I can do the transfer here as well.
Correct. Yes, because once you're here, it's your status that matters.
Yes.
You don't need to renew your visa unless you're traveling and re-entering.
Yes.
So yes, while you're on OPT, if you transfer before that OPT end date, it basically ends your OPT.
Exactly. Yes,
So,
I did see that. All right. I will reach out to you just so that we can maybe chat a bit more, so you can know my situation. But I do want to give space for some other students.
Sounds good. Thank you.
There were a few questions that folks asked in the chat. One was, so I think that we established that there's the list of countries that you're exempted from the English proficiency exam. So that is in the chat. If anyone else needs it, let me know. We had another question, Nancy, about the acceptance rate for BIC. So I wanted to give you a chance to answer that. Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Well, I mean, that varies from year to year. And so it's hard for me to give and especially during COVID, which I really think has kind of started to throw off a little bit of our data. I would say it's about a 50% acceptance rate. I think about 50% of the students who apply. I think it's been a little bit higher, frankly, but it's hard to know. There we go. It's hard to know moving forward. But that's what it's been in the past. Great. There was another question asking about whether BIC offers any undergrad courses, and we do not. We're strictly a grad program.
And then, Andy,
Although I'd add to that, you can take undergraduate courses when you're here. You just can't apply them to your BIC degree.
great. And then there was another question about, so Andy, you're currently working in New York, right? Someone wanted to know how hard was it to find a job, and what are your thoughts on international students actually finding work after they graduate?
That's a good question. And then, I mean, in general, finding a job, it's not easy, not to mention international students. In general, it's not that easy, especially with the economies and everything. But I think our program try our best to offer opportunities as much as possible. Like Professor mentioned, the first semester, we're already giving like so many opportunity for networking and our professors coming from the industry. And I think that it's moments where you can start to think about where are some of the places you want to be looking for opportunity? What are some of the things out there that you want to pay a close attention to? The other things that Professor Ted mentioned is the PIP. It's at the last semester where we will invite various industries professionals into our programs, and then we will show our portfolio in progress with them. This is technically not an official career fair thing, but the idea is you get a moment to chat with those professionals, and they are providing you with some recommendation. Like, let's say, if you want to show this to me in 3 months, this is not working. You need to do X, Y, Z. And you spend the time actually modifying those things. And it gives you the opportunity to reach out to those people later on and show them the progress that you made. I actually landed my job because of that event. So I met Future Grant in PIP, and my coworker, which is my mentor now, she gave me feedback in terms of like what I need to do with my portfolio. And I reached back to them saying that, hey, this is my updated portfolio. I want you guys to take a look at it and then took your feedback. And they gave me the opportunity to say, do you want to actually stop by to our office and then, meet the teams and everyone? And starting from there, they don't have a full-time position offer me back at the time yet, but they did offer me internship. And I think it was solely from there, I got an internship and then convert me to a full-time positions. And then I was able to apply for the working visa moving from there. I will say in general, the market will be challenging, but with the skill set that the things that you learn from BIC, I think is something that the industry is really looking for and craving for. Even now, there's so many things I'm applying at work. It's lessons and things that I learned from BIC, and there's so much more that's my current work is not have the chance to leverage yet. So there's so much more that we can offer. So that is one way that we can engage with the opportunity, the PIP, the people, the professors that we have in our program. And I think this is also one of the reasons why I mentioned like the industry event, the competition, like all those things are ways for you to be able to network here. And I think the important keyword here is make sure that as international student, make the time and effort to network with people, especially you're coming from a completely different country. Your network here is probably not as strong as someone who is local. Now that you have a BIC with you, I think it's a good opportunity to make sure that you have those bonds and make those connections.
I think that's so great, Andy, and I think it's spot on. And I think, when we listen to Pauline and Maribel and we hear about, all of the bureaucratic kind of things that we have to do in order to participate in the education system here in the United States. I always say international students have, jumped over so many hurdles. Who wouldn't want these students once they graduate? I'm always so impressed. But the thing is, I think that sometimes you get bogged down in the thinking that it's all about paperwork and it's all about my numbers and this and that. And Andy brings up such a great point that you get the chance to be a person here. because you get to meet people. And I think that's going to go so much further than just continuing to be an application with your name filled in and a couple of numbers. So Andy, I think that was really well stated. Thank you.
Nancy, there was another question from Olushola about grades. And I think this is probably relates to what you just talked about. They were asking about having gotten third class in business administration, will they be able to get admitted with that grade?
I don't exactly know what that means.
So we don't know what the equivalent would be. We'd probably need to see an unofficial transcript, but I think the larger conversation is related to what you just said. Students, applicants often ask if my GPA is a little low, or is it going to knock me out of contention?
I see. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned throughout the whole thing, I mean, you know, you have to hit a lot of these benchmarks and standards, right? But the admissions process, even though this is a public institution, even though you're an international student, there is some evaluation that goes on. I mean, you can look at some of the material and say, this person struggled because of X, Y, and Z, but look at how they overcame it, or, and therefore the GPA weighs a little bit less. I think that's what happens in the BIC admissions committee. It is an evaluative process. We do sit around a table and say, what do we think about this candidate? Where for Pauline, it is a little bit more, have you met this standard, and have you checked that box so that we can move it forward to that evaluative process. So we do have standards on the one hand, and there are certain things that you can't get around, and Maribel will tell you that for sure, right? There's just some things there's nothing we can do about, but it never hurts to ask. It never hurts to reach out and talk to us and say, these are the issues that are surrounding that. I mean, Pauline, we've had these conversations a number of times where a student who comes maybe with a 3-year degree, and we said, well, maybe this particular course of study, or maybe this particular university. So I always feel so terrible when people just self-deny themselves. They make the decision that they're not, without reaching out to us. So always reach out if you have a question before you decide not to commit or start that process.
And I'll just add on to that if I can, Nancy. You know, we added the list of evaluation agencies that the college accepts. And so anytime you're in doubt, you can have your documents evaluated. The thing that we're looking for is to make sure that you have the equivalence of a US bachelor's degree. And so you'll be able to learn that by doing an evaluation process.
That's all the questions that I have from the chat at this moment. Did anyone else have anything? And if you don't, I want to encourage you to make sure that you message me with your email so that I can make sure you get a recording of this if you'd like to have it. But before we close up here, is there anything else that has occurred to you that you'd like to add in the moment? If you don't want to say it out loud, feel free to pop it in the chat and I'll be happy to ask it for you.
Well, I'm seeing nothing build up in the chat. We've had a really nice time together. Thank you so much. You came in at 12. We're now at about 1:20. And so we spent a lot of time together. I really appreciate your commitment. This is actually the first time we've ever done an info session just for international students. So thank you for being our test case. I think it went well. I think we will continue to do this. I am so honored and happy and thankful for my colleagues from City College who have joined us, to Maribel and the International Student and Scholar Services Office. Thank you for your information and your wisdom and your guidance all the time, not just in our 1 hour session. And Pauline, you are my hero. You are such a rock star overseeing the Office of Graduate Admissions here at City College, doing such a spectacular job. As you can all imagine, understaffed and running on that hamster wheel all the time. So thank you for joining us. Rebecca, as always, our manager who keeps the office running. And a last shout out to Andy Kwan, who, if I can right now, I'm going to flunk you so you can come back into the program and so we can spend more time together. He is such a treasure. And I like to say he's a success story, but he's such a self-driven, motivated person that I almost feel bad about giving us any credit for his amazing success. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for giving us some of your time. Remember, we do have a Zoom session at any time. If you want to get more information, or if you want to give your email to us, and continue to ask questions. I'm so glad that you were here. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.